Citigram was created in 2014 by the fellows, the Code for America fellows here in collaboration with the City of Charlotte. Citigram distributes real-time updates of relevant open government data. So the City of Charlotte launched an open data portal in the 2014, and Citigram distributes information about road closures due to accident, planned road closures, pending rezonings, historic district updates, and a variety of other interesting, to you potentially based on your location, information as it becomes available. Charlotte is not the only city that Citigram operates in. We launched with 4 cities. We're now up to 12, and they're across the country. So from San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego, down to Orlando, Charlotte, Lexington, and we've stopped at Tulsa in the middle, right? So from coast to coast. Citigram's processed about 3 million events total. We've sent hundreds of thousands of text messages to Charlotteans based on their interest in what their government's doing. And so it's been a very successful project, and a real pleasure to have the opportunity to serve on the project. It's one of our most mature projects. It has a decent amount of needs, so if you'd like to learn more about its needs, you can come talk to me.
How many of y'all have used the City of Charlotte's website to find a piece of information of something that you wanted to know about the city? What were you looking for?
Probably tax information.
Tax information. Andrew, what were you looking for?
Uh-oh.
You put your hand up.
I know. That's because I had to
So
raise my hand.
maybe how to start a business, or
Yes.
there's general information. Thank you for being a plant.
Where to find life preservers?
But often, for when you're new to the City of Charlotte, and we've been one of the fastest growing metropolitans in the U.S., that when you're new and you're trying to get a sense of who does my water, who does my power, basically what police district I am. There's basic information that people tend to want to find out when they're new or just getting settled into Charlotte. And as wonderful as our city is, their website is not one of the best. So the project that we're working on is called Charlotte Answers, and it essentially is to take content from the City of Charlotte website and put it into a friendlier, easier to use format as sort of a proxy that it won't solve every question. We won't have the information in there of what the regulations are about how high your grass can or cannot be, but basic information of where do I go to pay my property taxes, when are they due, how to start a business. The things that 80% of the solutions that you might need, we'll have that in there, easy to find and viewable. And it's nothing to be built from scratch. It's actually based off of an existing project from another brigade that's called Honolulu Answers. So we'll be standing that up today and getting a feel for it. So there's lots of things to be done. Find some people in the city to see how the city feels about us kind of stealing their content and repurposing it until they get their new site design launched. We have some graphic needs because Honolulu Answers and Oakland Answers both have existing logos in them that we don't want to be Oakland or Honolulu. We want to be Charlotte, so we'd love some people that can draw to throw some new graphics in there. So that sounds interesting to you. Come hang out with me.
So yeah, I'm project manager for the CMPD Winter Gift Project. And what we're looking to do is, every year around the holiday season, CMPD works with fire departments, school districts, and organizations like the Salvation Army to run toy drives, to collect donations, and basically hold Christmas for children or in families in need that might not be able to fully provide for themselves. So they've been doing this for almost 40 years, if not more at this point, I believe. And they've been doing it completely by pen and paper since then. So imagine taking in 1,300 nomination forms like they did last year and having to work through a giant binder and sorting, who might be interested in what size bicycles, clothing, shoe sizes do we need, and doing that all analog simply by flipping through a page with the single record of all your nomination forms. So we're trying to digitalize that, give a program for school counselors to log in to submit their nominations digitally, so then we can use that data, structure it in a way where we can print reports, tell organizations exactly what kind of donations we need, so we can be super specific with toy drives and keep track of what donations they've received. And the end goal, of course, is to really hold Christmas for as many children as possible in the coming years with this new system. So if that sounds awesome to you, which hopefully it does, come on and join us over here, and we'll get you on board for on that.
Balance is a Code for America application that was developed to give people the ability to text in and get the EBT balance, which is food stamps. So most food stamps, to get the balance, you have to go on a website, which is great if you have data or internet access, which is not necessarily the case for the vast majority of people who are on food stamps. The other option is to call in and go through a 23-prompt system without making a single error. Otherwise, you start over again. It's tedious. If you are old enough to have banked in the 90s, you remember what that's like. It's not fun. So what they did was create an API that basically uses the existing system and calls in for you. So you text a number, it calls in, it goes, we've already programmed in what the prompts are, it goes through the prompts, it dials in your 16-digit number, listens to the message, transcribes it, and texts it back to you. It's like the perfect internet magic, right? So it's all done. It's turned on. We actually, because it's a state program, it turned on for the entire state. The thing is, nobody knows we've done this. It needs designers, it needs storytellers, marketers, PR, social media, all this stuff. Nobody knows that this exists, including the people signing them up for food stamps. Yeah, so clearly we need, that's basically what that project needs. It's a great one if you're not a developer, because there's a whole bunch of stuff like researching. We, haven't even got to the point where we've looked for who we need to contact to try to get a flyer put in with their application. Like something as easy as that to let people know that exists. Flyers to put at the grocery stores. Things like that would be really nice to do so that people know that it actually exists. So that's balance.
A lot of the things that we work for, or the projects we work with, we need data in order to build something. And LocalWiki is a method for us to be able to get data that that no one really has, because it is a community or neighborhood piece of information. Things like neighborhood history tell us about people that longtime residents and people that have perspective of neighborhoods that, especially those that are around Charlotte, that are rapidly changing. We lose some of those stories. So LocalWiki is both, imagine Wikipedia with location information on top of it. So, for instance, I live in a neighborhood that was started in the 1920s, so I can go through and mark within my neighborhood which house was the very first house that was built within my neighborhood. So it's one way of kind of documenting my neighborhood around me. And then after that, once that data is in there, because LocalWiki has an API, I could then build a walking tour for my neighborhood to get other people interested necessarily in the neighborhood, but also preserve the history of the neighborhood, stories that I could gather from my neighbors, things like that. So it's not only about kind of creating walking tours or like my own little neighborhood. If you have a great passion for homelessness and you know where the homeless encampments are around Charlotte, you could go into LocalWiki and within the Charlotte area and map out where all these homeless encampments are to make people aware of what's often seen as a hidden problem within Charlotte. It's pretty much anything that you can kind of think of. What we don't want to put in there is data that already exists within the city or county's open data project, because essentially we take data and put it back into a place that's somewhere else. We don't really want to just type in every local business in there that may already exist in Yelp, but we want to add new data that is not necessarily there, that exists in some other way. So there's been a rapid development of murals around Charlotte. We'd love to see, and LocalWiki is incredibly flexible. So if you really love a lot of the art around Charlotte, you could go mark that in there, put the address in, and then come back when you're ready with your camera phone and add those pictures and make people aware of how beautiful Charlotte is, whereas kind of not being the bland banking town that people think we are. So LocalWiki is really open to anyone that really cares about Charlotte and has a story that they want to add and share.
What I would also like to do is welcome DJ. For those of you who haven't had a chance to talk to DJ yet, I recommend doing it before he has to zip out of here. But DJ Patil is, you have the longest title in the whole world. So, Deputy Chief Technology Officer of Policy?
Data policy.
Data Policy. Man, I knew I was going to get it right. And then also Chief Tech. See? It is too long. It is so
Everyone
long.
just calls me, I have a shortened title that the president uses.
Okay, what's that one?
The United States Chief Data Scientist.
Yay! So there's a short, nice title. DJ's only here with us this morning, then for lunch, and then he's going to zip off and close out his day in Miami. Because he wants us all to be jealous, basically. Sure, that is what the goal is. But I wanted to give DJ some time to tell you guys about some cool data initiatives going on. Can you make sure you tell them about the one that we talked about in part of the CMPD, how they're using that data? Because I think that's really neat, and that's something that we as citizens don't hear about.
First of all, kudos for everyone being out here and on this critical project that we've talked about. You're owning. Here's one of the coolest things about being at the White House and working under this president is this shift that we're seeing in civic engagement. The number one shift that we're starting seeing, Hung and I were just talking about this, is that what we're seeing is a shift of people who are in the community who have superpowers that the community has never had before. That superpower is technologists, designers, people who are really able to construct the digital world and bridge the digital world into everything else. And all of you as a community being able to come and work on problems that are relevant for the place in which you live. Right? That is a uniquely different thing. When you're building a product in your company, you oftentimes have a persona in mind of who you're building for. We have a problem there as well, is that some of those personas are, very much just typically white male people. Like, we don't build for women. We don't build for African Americans. We don't build for people with different sexual orientation. We're starting to. But what we all have the ability to do is build for a specific individual. Like the one that you were just talking about, right? The idea of whether it's a wiki or being able to get answers for somebody who's brand new to town. What happens if that person that's brand new to town is a veteran, right? Just came out of active military service. They've been working their butt off for the last 2 years to keep us safe so we can live in the secure environment that we know and love. They're coming off of tour duty and we're saying, hey, you should come live and hang out in Charlotte. Great. How do they get access to all the things that they need? Where's the local VA? Where are all the other things? What about a mom who is victim of domestic violence? What are we doing to build for them? Somebody with a mental health issue, a physical disability, you name it. Those are the problems that we get to solve when it's our local city and we decide to take ownership. Could be where's the graffiti? Could be where are the potholes? Could be where's the best education? How do we think about our crime? All of those things, those tie in. The place and the people who are making that different, it's not the federal government. It's the local cities. That's the place where it's happening. The force multipliers that make that happen, one, people willing to roll up their sleeves and come in on a Saturday and do it themselves. Two, career people who are technologists who are willing to come in and do this. Really taking a time out of their career or making it part of their career. One of the things that people forget most often about me is they think of me as a Silicon Valley guy. I got my start in the Department of Defense. I was a Fed. Then I went to Silicon Valley. Much of the Silicon Valley data science movement actually started because a bunch of us Feds moved out to DC, and now we're coming back in. So we think of government as actually our natural home. The third is data. Really incredible things we can do with data. But also technology, the mobile, all these type of things. So what are some of the things that we're seeing that, when I look across the ideas that you're looking at and you could do? So some of the ones that are cool are the ones that you're doing where it's open and it's very obvious. But there's other ones where the data is really closed up and locked up. One of the ones that we've seen is the president has announced about a year ago what is the police data initiative. This gets data to be opened up by police departments. Charlotte Mecklenburg is one of those participants. Open up the data, put it up on a website, policedatainitiative.org. You can go get all this data. There's over 90 data sets. What's limiting there from being more data sets? Turns out it's not the police departments don't want to open up the data sets. They've got legacy system. There's no export save as button. There's a giant ETL problem. They need technologists to come in and help unlock that data. Help them think about their strategy, what there is. And that's what the brigades do. That's what you guys do. But the other one is the one when they're sitting inside there, they're working with a bunch of data scientists from the University of Chicago. Those data scientists are sitting with the police officers and they're looking at excessive force. What causes excessive force? Turns out you can do some really interesting things if you're sitting inside and not worried about what privacy and all those things are and shielding all that, working directly with the police department. We looked at all the data, and first thing that you realize is, hey, it's a minor set of data of officers that are doing bad things. Most are disproportionately good. So you've got a signal to noise ratio issue. So how do you find that? Well, we know how to do that. Anybody work in ad targeting? Same ideas. We use feature set selection, machine learning. We started looking at that. So the first set of variables that determine outcomes of officer excessive force. All the usual things. You have a track record. You've got a long history of doing bad stuff. Great, we can identify those. We can deal with those. Second batch. Did you respond to a domestic violence incident where a child was present? Did you respond to a suicide call? Suddenly, if you're working with the police directly with those officers and you ask, well, what's that like? And you say, hey, suicides are messy. They're highly emotionally charged. You're in this domestic violence and there's a kid there. Things are heated. So now where is the data failing? Where's the system breaking down? Turns out, dispatch says, hey, great, you just came off that suicide case. Get out there and go get back on duty in the beat patrol. Now you pull somebody over, broken taillight, and they're flipping with you. You've just come off this highly emotional case. No human can survive that. Right? We're using data in a way that is not, or we're lacking using data to actually create empathy. So we're able to do this process is they're saying dispatch needs to be modified. And so we're not just using data for transparency, we're using data on behalf of the officer. We're also using that data to figure out how can we get better cost savings across this whole system. Police chief, your city, we're all under incredible pressure. So how do we think about that? One of the other ones that we're starting to see is how to use this data to get people the right help. Combine data sets. Turns out in Miami-Dade, Florida, we're not talking about any brilliant data science here. You look at your policing data, you look at your healthcare data, and you're like, who are these people? Camden, New Jersey did this too, just mapping a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. 70% of all medical costs come from 10% of the population. They're hitting the safety net, all those things. When Miami-Dade looked at this, they realized, hey, you know what? These are people who have mental health issues. So what do? They trained all the officers in mental health crisis intervention, trained dispatch. And what they're doing in that process, after 1 year, they saved $12 million, but more importantly, they closed a full jail. The people aren't supposed to go to jail. They're supposed to get the help they need. So we call it divert to what? Divert them to the things they need. Opioid, mental health, whatever it needs. Just don't put them in jail where they're going to spiral down if they aren't a direct threat to the society. In the case where there is a threat, double down and make sure that we're really making sure that we're not having things slip through the cracks. Data can help us there. So those are just a couple of the things. We also have a whole slew of things we're thinking about: healthcare, a really great sense of things about how do we unlock healthcare. I spent a bunch of my day yesterday was with the vice president. We were focused on the cancer initiative. And what we realized there is that you gotta have access to your health data. You have to have it, it's your data. How do we get that data unlocked for you to donate it to where you need or get the care you deserve? All of those different things. And there's a ton built in there. We're running something called the President's Precision Medicine Initiative, which was announced the year before as State of the Union, working to create the largest data set that is safely and securely really locked up for researchers to understand the next generation of how to create tailored medical treatments and all of those different things. And so there's the one thing I will tell you through all of this is the data in all of this also has to be, when you're building it, think about the storytelling narrative of it. If you're putting something up there with data, ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what do you want that person to take away? And then ask yourself, one step below that, who is that person? If that is a person who is, in the mind of the domestic violence victim, and you're asking yourself, what does that moment look like? And you're just putting up a ton of data, that's useless. Because you need to get what you're after. Maybe a chatbot is a way to do it. Maybe something else. We have to try. But the second part of that is, what do you want them to take away? So first is what do you want to take away? Second is, what action do you want them to take? Should they click on a button? Should they study it? Should they tweet it? Should they follow up? Should they study it? What action do you want them concretely to take? And then the third one is the one we leave out most often when we're building any of this type of data or civic technology. How should we want them to feel? What's that feeling supposed to be? Should they be excited? Should they be ecstatic? If we're building a site that's like, hey, you're moving to Charlotte, first time here, you should be excited. Let's talk about all the great stuff that's here. Talk about barbecue. At least I always do want to. And speak to you. But the part is like that feeling. Get them to understand that feeling of what you want and how that should come across. You follow those things through with the narrative, you'll find what you build today, the things that you're coming up with, will have a richer stickiness with all of that. And the biggest thing is please stay with us. Please stay engaged in doing all this. Help out the city. Help out, be transparent with each other. The more you make this a conversation, the more you literally create the next generation of the Great American barn raising, because it's happening digitally. It's going to be us that are in charge of making this happen. I am all ears for any ideas, because one thing that you should know is, actually I'll show it to you because I keep it with me at all times, is, people always ask us, well, what's happening with administration? What's left? And I got this mug yesterday from St. Louis. It said, "I can kill you with my brain." So that's my new situation room mug. But this is a note card the president gives us. Let's see if I have it in here. I should. Oh, here's one of them. This is one he gives us. He says, "Everything we do needs to be infused with a sense of possibility. We are not scared of the future." Everything we do needs to be infused with a sense of possibility. We're not scared of the future. And the second one that he has, which is somewhere in my stack of them here. Any Warriors fans? All right, this one's for you guys. We are entering the fourth quarter, and really important things happen in the fourth quarter. So we have 33 weeks left of the administration, but you have our 100% commitment to do every single thing that is in our power, in our time and our energy. That's why we're out here. That's why we're traveling around the country, to double down on every single possible thing we can do to work together to remove any roadblocks, or in any way that you need amplification of something. Our job is to work for you. So your job is to hold us accountable to that. Tell us what we need to do. Tell us what we need to lift up, what stories we need to tell, all of those things, and you will find an extraordinarily willing partner with not just me, but the entire White House at your disposal. And I'll be looking forward to hanging out with all you guys for at least the next couple hours. But rock on.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What did you learn from hanging out with the St. Louis Brigade yesterday?
So we were in a science center, and it's really interesting to give a talk from underneath the Tesla coil. So that was really cool. But then, there's something that there's a really interesting movement going on across the country that is deeply troubling, that is exactly against embracing what's possible and questioning how great this country is. If you ever want to question, to get a sense of the true power of this nation and what it means to bring the full power of the United States of America to solve a problem, hang out with a bunch of kids who want to be scientists. We have this young lady, she's 17, she was at this year's White House Science Fair. She's from Louisville, Kentucky. She's studying renal failure. It's a $30 billion problem a year. We will have the first official White House summit on organ donation on June 13th, I believe. And this costs an incredible amount of pain in people's lives. Her research as a 17-year-old is so good, the university's given her a lab. It's unbelievable. This is a young lady that may unlock the cure. Year before, we had another 17-year-old kid named Nathan Hahn, who's using open data on cancer, basically, and he's not interested in cancer necessarily. He's interested in artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. He's using cancer as kind of like, hey, maybe I can try something here. His algorithms compete with the best machine learning algorithms out there. Yet most people aren't using machine learning think about cancer. He is at 17 because nobody has told him no. That's what pushes us. You talk to India, you talk to China, you talk to Europe, and they all say one thing. How do you get your kids to constantly reinvent themselves and come up with what's next? And that's what it is. And taking ownership is what we do as a country. And it's a problem when we decide to own it. That's that shift. And that's probably been the coolest thing to reinforce from last night.